Good morning, everyone. Glad you could all make it. I thought I would start our annual mid-year State of the Lightning get-together with by sharing a few thoughts and observations on our season so far. I'll start by stating the obvious. It is a very different season. It is a very different experience than anything we've encountered before. Some of the differences, the most obvious ones, a very short training camp with no preseason games, very limited practice time, a very condensed schedule, rescheduling of games on the fly, a baseball type schedule where you have longer homestands and longer road trips, playing the same 7 teams all the time, lack of fans in the building, and the list goes on and on and on. So when I try to evaluate our play and look at our numbers this year versus last year, our underlying numbers, it is somewhat difficult to assess our team because of all these differences. We haven't played anyone outside of our division, so it's hard to see how we match up. None of the teams we've played have played teams outside of our division, which might give us some indication. It's also a very small sample size. I think we've played 25 games to this point, so we're at the mid-year point or just about here for this season. But under normal circumstances, when we have our mid-season get-together, we usually have somewhere between 35 and 45 games. So when I look at our numbers and I see differences, are those differences based on the fact that the season is different, that we're playing the same teams all the time, that we're playing more games in a short period of time and we don't have a lot of practice time? I don't have the answers to those questions. The information that I do have, though, when I look at that, when the season starts, where do we want to be at the midpoint season? Well, we want to have banked as many points towards the standings as possible so that we're in a position to secure a playoff spot in the second half of the season. And if you look at the standings this morning, you look at wins and losses, goals for, goals against, our special teams, the only conclusion you can draw is that we've had a really good first half of the season. When I look at the points of emphasis that we believe help us be successful, areas where we need to excel at, i.e., limiting the number of quality scoring chances against, battling hard physically, managing the game. When I look at the numbers for our players this year versus last year, I see a lot of consistency. I see numbers that are very similar. When we met in December of 2019, and I was talking about our numbers, at that point, to a man, year to year, everyone had improved in all these underlying numbers. There's a long list of them, but 50-50 battles, turnover ratios, everyone had improved, but year to year there was a lot of room for improvement. This year, there wasn't as much room for improvement, and when I look at all those metrics, to a man, everyone is very consistent. No one stands out as taking a huge step forward in these areas or taking a huge step back. Usually the differences are insignificant in their numbers year to year, and again, we're dealing with a smaller sample size. When I analyze all that, what does that tell me? Well, it tells me that we have a mature group. When you look at the phases of group development, the so-called forming, storming, norming, performing phases, we're clearly in the performing stage with this group here. They know what we're trying to accomplish, they know what's expected of them, and they know what they need to do to play at a high level on a consistent basis. They're a mature group, they are a talented group, and they are a resilient group. And when I look at them and I see them interact amongst themselves, and I watch them practice and I watch them play games, I see no signs of complacency after winning a championship. I see steely resolve. I see a humble confidence. And I see a hunger for more. I see it in our players. I see it in our coaches. I see it in our staff. If I look at more of our collective play, again, we're pretty steady year to year in the numbers that we try to pay attention to. The one area where I think our play has slipped is we're giving up more on-man rushes, and we're giving up more quality chances off of on-man rushes. So that's one area where I'd like us to tighten up in the second half of the season. One area where we continue to struggle is we're still taking way too many minor penalties. We are providing the other team with too many power play opportunities, and hopefully that's something we can rein in the second half of the season and make life a little easier on ourselves. The flip side of that is there's one area where we've significantly improved, and it goes to us, battling physically harder, and that's in the trenches in front of both nets. In the defensive zone, we're doing a much better job boxing out, and in the offensive zone, we're doing a much better job getting to the front of the net, screening shots, tipping pucks. So that's a positive trend for our group. So to kind of summarize all of that, we have a mature group of players, a mature team, mature coaching staff and support staff that have had a pretty good first half of the season. And now, as I look towards the second half of the season, the objective is still the same. It's to continue to bank points towards the standings, secure a playoff spot, and all the while try to manage energy reserves and wear and tear as much as possible, considering our schedule. If ever there was a time where the saying "rest is a weapon" was applicable, it was certainly this season with all of the challenges that this season has in terms of, again, density of schedule and so forth and so forth going forward. I mentioned earlier that there were a lot of differences. A lot of them stem from, the world we live in right now, but also the various protocols, safety protocols that the NHL and the NHLPA have put in place to keep everyone safe and to allow us to be able to put on a season in this environment. It has required a lot of sacrifices from our players and our coaches and our staff, but also from our families and our spouses, who I'm sure are feeling even more isolated because of all of the long road trips. We just came back from an 11-day road trip late last night. And also there's probably less people coming in. Usually, if you live in Tampa, in season, you're getting friends and family visiting you throughout the season coming in from up north. This year, there's probably a lot less of that, if any of that going on. So I want to acknowledge the sacrifices that our families and our spouses in particular are making to allow us to compete this year, and I wanted to convey that I appreciate their ongoing support. Another group that I'd like to acknowledge is our player development group, and I'm going to name Stacy Roost, JP Cote, Ben Grew and all of his staff with the Syracuse Crunch, Mike Ellis, Barb Underhill, Tracy Tutton, Jamie Heffernan, Ryan Hamilton. To do player development in this environment in the last year has been very challenging. And they've all come up with very creative ways. They're so passionate about their work. They're so passionate about helping young players realize their potential. I've been so impressed with the work they've all done this year, often working remotely, or when they've been able to travel and interact with our players or work with our players, whether during the pause or since the AHL has resumed play here. It's often required 14-day quarantines of them when they go back home to Canada. The staff in Syracuse right now are essentially running a high level hockey academy this year. The number of players is almost, at some point it was almost double what we would normally have. It includes players from 2 different organizations. It includes many more players than usual for whom this is their first year of professional hockey. It includes junior age players this year who had nowhere else to play and train, so we brought them into Syracuse so that our development staff could work with them. And I wanted to acknowledge the quality work they've done and they continue to do, and the sacrifices that they've done to help our players over the course of the last year. And we're starting to reap the rewards of all that hard work. 3 of our players this year have played their first NHL game. Cal Foote, who's pretty much establishing himself as a regular at the NHL level. Ross Colton and Alex Barré-Boulet both played their first few games, and their time to become regulars on our team is probably coming in the not too distant future. We have Taylor Radish now with us, who's played really well and really progressed over the course of the last year. Played really well in Syracuse up to this point this season, but also progressed over the course of the year. So that's just to name a few. As a rule of thumb, all of our prospects seem to have improved this year, some of them significantly, and I'm really impressed that we've been able to do that in the context of this environment. And kudos to our players for making the commitment to give every effort to try to realize their potential and reach their dream of becoming NHL players. Obviously, most of the credit goes to them, but I also wanted to acknowledge the people that are out there providing them with resources and support to help them out. So I'm really happy that our player development program seems to be humming along here in this environment. Our scouts have done a great job providing us with quality prospects to work with. Our development people have done a great job providing resources and support to our young players. The young players have put in the work, and now it appears like we have a number of them that in the not too distant future are going to be able to fill future roster voids in Tampa, and that's the healthiest way of doing that. So that bodes well, and I'm excited about that. If I look forward to, I guess, the trade deadline, I'm sure that's on your mind as well. We're about a month away here or so. I mentioned we have a mature group. We have a group that's chasing a championship, and every decision that we have made up to this point and every decision that we're going to make in the coming weeks is geared towards providing us the best odds possible to go on another magical run here in the postseason this year. Some of those decisions go way back, including trading for Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman at the deadline last year, knowing that we would have them for at least 2 playoff runs. Some of those decisions were made in the offseason, where we made decisions as to how we're going to allocate our cap space, and essentially used up all of our cap space for the year already. And that's allowed us to assemble the team that we have right now that sits at the top of the standings this morning. That also means we have $0 of cap space to acquire a player between now and the trade deadline. So anything that we would do would have to be $1 of cap space out for $1 of cap space in. And because of that, realistically, I think it's unlikely that we're going to be adding a player between now and the trade deadline. The good news is that the team that we have right now, as assembled, has a reasonable reason to believe that it can chase down another Stanley Cup. It's got a roster filled with players that have proven that they can win a championship, and I don't believe that there's any team that will be acquiring a player at the deadline or between now and the deadline that will be as impactful as us getting Nikita Kucherov back come playoff time. We went into this season knowing that probably our only addition this year would be Nikita coming back for us during the playoffs. Hopefully we can do a good job securing a playoff spot, securing a playoff berth, and Nikita is on track with his rehab, and I fully expect that he'll be able to contribute come playoff time, and hopefully add a little oomph to our team. As I said, I don't know that there's anything that any team could do at the deadline that would be as impactful as adding Nikita Kucherov to our group. So that being said, we usually have mid-year meetings with our pro scouts to kind of get ready for the trade deadline and also the upcoming off season. We're going to do those remotely next week. We are doing our due diligence, looking at trying to find opportunities to improve our team, whether that's at forward, at D, regardless. If there is an opportunity for us to add a player that will make our team better, and we can find a way to make it work cap-wise, we're going to do it. But at the same time, I do want to manage expectations because we literally have $0 of cap space, and that's going to be the biggest challenge to us doing anything trade-wise between now and the deadline. And before I throw out the questions, I'd like to, on behalf of I think our players and our coaches and our entire organization, we very much look forward to having the fans back in our building tomorrow. We've always appreciated their support. In the last year, we've appreciated their distant support, but I think everyone in the NHL now appreciates our fans even more than before after having played in empty buildings for a year. I think we're up for a very nice evening tomorrow with a banner raising, our fans coming back, and then watching a hockey game. So I look forward to that. So on that note, I will toss it out to anyone that has any questions.
We'll start off with Kevin Lewis.
Julien, you touched on it, just having fans back tomorrow and, having the banner go the second half of the way up to the Raptors. I mean, what is that moment going to be like, putting a bow on last season during this season while you're still trying to go after another cup?
I always say that the beauty of our sport, what makes our sport so great, is the competitive spirit of our players and the passion of our fans. And tomorrow is a way to kind of connect the two. And I like what our CEO, Steve Griggs, said earlier in the season when he said that the banner raising is for the fans. So tomorrow is a way for our team to acknowledge their support, their ongoing support. And so I kind of know what the schedule is for tomorrow's pregame ceremony. I think it's going to be a very nice moment, and I look forward to it, and I think the fans will appreciate it. I guess ultimately it's a way for our organization and our players to acknowledge our fans and let them know that we appreciate their support.
Brian Burns.
Julien, how is Nikita Kucherov progressing in his rehab from off-season hip surgery, and is he still on track to rejoin the team for a playoff run if you guys are able to do so?
Yeah, he is. He's exactly on track. He started skating this week, actually. So he's following the schedule very methodically and following the protocol and working hard with our therapist to get his range of motion back, get his strength back, get his, now he's skating, so it's getting those muscles to start firing up again. And it is a process. It's a long rehab. It's a significant injury. But many hockey players have gone through it, including some of our players in years past. Braden Point and Yanni Gourde, to mention two of them. And as of now, everything indicates that he is right on track and he will make a full recovery. And when I see him every now and then, his spirits are high, and he's itching to get back playing again and ramping up what he's allowed to do.
Ed Encina, Tampa Bay Times.
Hi, Julien. Thanks for doing this. I was wondering, you mentioned how different and unique this has been. This season's been. Obviously, part of that is the schedule, especially down the stretch with all these games in a short amount of time. How does that affect maybe the workload that you guys put on Andrei Vasilevsky down the stretch, and just kind of how you guys maneuver something like that, given how well he's played, how many games he has played? Obviously, that you do want him, at his best, come, for a postseason run,
Well, it's always a balancing act. Our schedule for the first half, especially for a few stretches there, because games got rescheduled, some Carolina games, some Dallas games, it lightened up our load earlier on, and it made it more reasonable and easier for us to play Vasi maybe a little bit more. But now going forward, we have so many games in such a short period of time, post-game travel, back-to-backs, 3 and 4s. We're in the midst of a 5 and 7 right now. Obviously, we're going to have to share the load, and we have faith in Curtis that he can help us win games when he's called upon, and it's a balancing act. But I think if it was up to Vasi, he'd play every game, but at the same time, he understands that his goal is to win another Stanley Cup, and we need him fresh, or as fresh as possible, assuming we can secure a playoff berth here, have him as fresh as possible come playoff time. And and he's such a big piece of our team, obviously. So it is something that the coaches discuss on a regular basis, and that we're going to have to manage. But it's not unlike any other season in that regards, where you're always kind of balancing getting Vasi his starts and also getting him some rest.
Jay Retcher, WDAE.
Hey, Julien, thanks for doing this. I wanted to ask you about Yanni Gourde. It seems like he's really taken that next step the last 12 months and being able to shuffle up and down the lineup. How big has his improvement been as far as being able to give your team a little bit more depth up front?
Well, I think the biggest difference is Yanni is playing with so much more confidence right now. And then you have to go back. But when we brought him up at the end of that, I think it was the spring of 2017, I think, like he performed very well, and then performed very well in years after that, and he had a tough stretch last year where the puck just wasn't going in for him, and that can wear on you, especially when you're someone like Yanni who's won scoring championships and is used to producing at a very high clip. I know it weighed on him, and at the same time, he was playing so well and contributing so much on the penalty kill. We were using him a lot last year with Cedric Paquette, and the two of them were a great combination. He was doing a lot of other good things for us. I think the pause was good for him, and it allowed him to, I think, maybe decompress from the frustration that he was feeling from not producing at the level that he was accustomed to, and the puck not going in for him. He was still getting chances. It's just sometimes over the course of 30 games, it might happen. And then when the playoffs came in and we put him back at center, I think that was a big part of him getting his confidence back and him using his skating and aggressively forechecking. And now he's back doing the Yanni that we knew we had when we brought him up and signed him to that contract.
Steve Wino, go ahead.
Hey, Julien, it seems like the draft is going to stay on schedule late July. I'm just curious your thoughts on that and just the concern of kind of how just the pipeline of guys who are draft eligible who won't be playing this season.
I know, like a lot of us in our jobs, general managers, like we're kind of focused on how this impacts our organization and our ability to use our draft selections to add players to our pipeline. When I think of it, I'm mostly thinking of those kids that haven't gotten a chance. It's their draft year. They haven't gotten a chance to put their best foot forward. They haven't got a chance to showcase themselves at such a important juncture in their career. In the grand scheme of things, this isn't making or breaking their career, but I know it means a lot to those kids on an emotional, from an emotional standpoint. So I mostly feel for them. With regards to the teams, the rules are going to be the same for everyone. The resources are the same for everyone. Like it's going to be what it's going to be. There's a lot of randomness in draft success, even in the best of circumstances. I suspect there's going to be even more this year. But again, the rules are the same for everyone, and we'll be ready. I've talked to Almer a number of times. I've talked to our other scouts. We're going to be ready to make selections whenever the draft is.
Eric Erlandson, go ahead.
Hi, Julien. The commissioner came out the other day and said that he expects a flat cap for probably at least 3 or 4 more years. Just how much does that really kind of hurt what you have been able to build and try and keep together here looking forward, even, just a couple years down the road?
Well, it's a challenge, obviously. It's a significant challenge in terms of being able to keep all of our good players together. That was going to be a challenge even under the best of circumstances when we expected the cap this year, this current 2021 season, to be at $84 million. Now we're at $81.5, and it's going to remain so for the foreseeable future. So obviously it's a challenge. I think today it's a challenge for tomorrow. Right now we're focused on what kind of decisions can we make, what kind of moves can we make to increase the odds of today's team having a magical run this season and making the most of this season.
Do a couple more here regarding the Lightning, then we'll go to Syracuse. We'll go to Dan Rosen, NHL.com.
Hey, Julien. Question for you. I know you talked about the trade deadline. The Lightning likely won't be impacted so much by it because of the cap situation. But on a league-wide view, just like maybe a 30,000-foot view, what do you expect from a trade deadline in a pandemic season for the flat cap? Do you think this is going to be an active market, or do you think it's going to change because of everything that's gone on?
Your guess is as good as mine. That supply and demand equation, I don't know what it looks like right now. I know a lot of teams are in the same situation we're in, where they literally have no cap space or very, very little, not enough to add a player without subtracting. At the same time, the schedule matrix and the divisional formats, there's a lot more 4-point games going forward. So the teams that are kind of on the bubble, I don't know how they're going to, what's ultimately going to guide their decisions. Are they going to try to add? Are they going to sell? Will there be more teams just standing pat? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to find out in the next 30 days or so.
Joe Smith, go ahead.
Hey, Julien, you mentioned Cal Foot earlier in his development. Just what have you thought about his progression? I think it seemed like you've been doing something what you did with Sergachev a couple of years ago in terms of how you've been using him. And are you comfortable with your depth on the blue line? I know you used 9 defensemen in the playoffs, the bubble last year, due to injuries and everything else like that. I was just wondering your overall feel right there.
Yeah, Cal's really come along. I've been impressed with his progression. He's more and more assertive in his play with the puck, in his physical play when he's defending, and that's really key for him. He put a lot of time during the pause in getting stronger and working on his foot speed. The foot speed's coming along, the strength is coming along. There's still untapped potential on both fronts for him. He's still a very young player, still developing, but I like how I can see his confidence grow from game to game, and he just needs to keep doing that. He's obviously he's a completely different player than Misha Sergachev, but they're both good young players that I see playing for us for many years to come. So that's exciting, especially him being a right shot D. We already have the murderer's row on the left side with Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev. So it's nice to know that we have someone that's going to be eating minutes for us on the right side. With regards to our D and our depth, I'm comfortable with what we have now. Borgman played the other game and looked fine, especially considering how little he's played in the last year and in the last few months. He can skate, he can move the puck, he was poised, he didn't look overwhelmed, and we were playing a very good Chicago team. So that gives us 8 right now around the team that we feel we can throw out there and they can handle the minutes.
2 more on the Lightning. Eric Erlandson.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on the cap being flat for a couple years. What does that mean for some of your pending UFAs? Is there any chance that a guy like Blake or Barclay in particular, you might be able to look at keeping them and extending them?
Well, we and I personally like those guys very much. They're very good players. Those are the types of players that help you win games and help you win championships when you have the superstars, when you have the Stamkoses and the Kucherovs and the points. Their contribution is, I think, undervalued probably outside, like in the general public. They're really good players and they play the right way, and they bring our team into the fight. So I would love to keep both of them. Right now, we're focused on maximizing the potential of this year's squad, and as I said, trying to get on a long run and chasing down another championship. In the off season, a lot of things are going to be looked at, including re-signing some of those unrestricted free agents. We're going to have to deal with the expansion draft. We're still going to have to address our cap situation because, as you know, if Kuch was healthy right now, we'd be about $10 million over the cap. So, but those are all conversations for a later time.
Ed Encina.
Julien, in the offseason, obviously the focus was, on re-signing, some of the young core players, those 23, 24-year-old guys, the Sergachevs, the Sorellis, the Chernaks. I was wondering, each of them seem to have had really good seasons so far. I was wondering just, what your take has been on just kind of their growth in the first half and, as they kind of, continue to kind of come into their own a little bit.
Well, they're so young. They were key contributors on a Stanley Cup championship team last year, and they were so young. It's so impressive to be able to do that. So part of the rationale for us wanting to keep them as opposed to maybe other players was the fact that not only are they good players, but they also have untapped potential. And we knew they'd only keep getting better. And the progression in all three of them that I see this season is it's exciting to watch. They're not only is their play continuing to reach higher and higher levels, but they're also now taking more ownership over the team's success and slowly but surely joining the leadership group and it's like it's Stammer's team and it's Hedman's team and it's McDonough's team, but it's also Point and Sorelli's and Sergachev's. Like we have a really great group of guys and high-end players, and those are three of them for sure.
Joe Smith, you can do one more quick one here.
Yeah, you mentioned early on how unique the season is and makes it harder to evaluate your team, both from off the ice stuff and also not playing everybody in the league. I guess how does that make it more challenging for you when you're evaluating your team as far as trying to make any moves if you possibly can make one at the deadline, not having played those teams head to head and kind of where those matches up?
Well, there's nothing I can do about that. We're not scheduled to play them between now and the deadline. And two, the biggest obstacle to us doing anything at the trade deadline is our cap space or absence of cap space. Literally $0. So that's the obstacle. That and also not knowing what exactly will be available and what the prices will be for those players. Those are the unknowns those are the unknowns I'm focused on and trying to figure out what's available, what will the prices be, and the challenge will be our absence of cap space.
And we'll go up to Syracuse, Lindsey Kramer.
Hey, good morning or afternoon. Just a couple quick things. One is on Bunievis. I know he was signed as a depth player for you guys, sent down to Syracuse. I don't think he's practiced at all this year. Ben mentioned possible concussion. What is his status? Will he play this year?
Well, unfortunately, he is injured. He is rehabbing. It has proven to be a pretty lengthy rehab to this point, and unfortunately, we don't have a timeline for when Boo will come back. He did practice early on, prior to getting hurt, and we were counting on him to be an important player on that team, especially down the middle. Unfortunately, at this time, with the type of injury he has, we don't know exactly when he'll come back or if he'll come back, but we're still working with him. He's showing up to the rink every day. He's seen some specialists, and hopefully we can get him back healthy as soon as possible.
And then part two, the signing of Wally to not a 1-year deal, but a 2-year deal. That extends his tenure here to in the minor leagues. It's almost unheard of to have a player with one organization. It'd be 3, 4, 5 years now. Obviously, Wally's been a great match here, but I was interested in your thoughts about extending him for 2 years, and what, in your view, has made him such a perfect fit for Tampa Bay and Syracuse?
Well, a few things. The one thing, if to be completely candid, is his veteran status with the AHL was something that was going to come into play based on how many games he ends up playing this season. So we had a conversation with him. We didn't want to put him in a situation where we would be somewhat handcuffing his ability to maximize his income next year because he had become a veteran player, especially in a season this year where there really are no standings, there are no playoffs, there's no cup that we're chasing, there are no fans in the building. And in the course of those conversations, and again, those conversations were actually between Stacey Roos and Wally. I wasn't privy to them directly. It came up that we'd love to keep him. Like he's a good player. He's a hard player to play against. He works hard, but he's also a phenomenal human being, a great leader. In the mold of others that we've had over the years, Mike Angelidis, they're different, but Mike Angelidis was a phenomenal leader and helped us establish that culture of winning in Syracuse when we came in 2012. And then, Luke Witkowski's been a contributor to continuing that culture of winning and doing things the right way. And Daniel Walcott is another player that believes in our program and is an amplifier for our coach's message. And that's worth a lot to us. And that's why ultimately we decided to approach him about locking him up now and making sure that our interests are all aligned going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.